Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here this Wednesday morning in your nation's capital. I had to pause there because it feels like Tuesday to me, because I had Monday off. That was travel day coming back from the West Coast. So this feels like a Tuesday, but it's a Wednesday, and I'll be fine. Good morning, Julie Gunlock. I'm sorry.
Good morning.
Sometimes I just say things. It's 6:35.
We're glad you're back.
Thomas. Thank you. I all week long. I'm back. I'm going to just getting ramped in. 6:35 will be Cal Thomas joining us. 7:05, Jeremy Hunt, Veterans on Duty, chairman of that august organization. Talk about how did you see the announcement with Trump about how the Houthis are not going to be firing? The Houthis continue to fire missiles at our ships. It's been happening for years. Biden didn't say a damn thing about it.
They're in the FO of the
Yes. But the announcement from Trump was really funny, where he said, where did you get this deal? He goes, it's not a deal. They just told us they're not going to fire on us anymore, and then right. We'll stop killing them. 8:05, Gordon Chang on announcement now that we've got a meeting with China in the middle of the tariff discussions. And then at 8:35, the Attorney General of Virginia, Jason Miyares, he had a big announcement based on a story that we discussed yesterday on this program. Nick Minnock broke out at Channel 7. I love our little 1-2 punch of Nick Minnock at WJLA and then O'Connor and Company here on WMAL, and we get stuff done, and it's kind of good to watch. So we'll talk to the Attorney General about an investigation now in Loudoun County schools where boys have to deal with a girl in their locker room. And again, we've got some other trans news that we're going to delve into here, but I just want to refocus on this because I do... Oftentimes, I'm proud that this program has sort of been able to position itself as sort of, in our own way, a protector of young girls, protector of our daughters, protector of our sisters, in this mania of insisting on boys invade their private spaces. And, that's why Riley Gaines, began to get a national platform, and why the great work that Independent Women's Forum got such a great spotlight and really sort of elevated this discussion to, I think, was a part and parcel to winning the election for Donald Trump. Lost in the mix here is how hard it is to be a 14-year-old boy. And I think just for a moment, if I could, because I'm just surrounded by all you estrogen machines on a moment-by-moment basis on this show, injecting your own agenda into the lineup. Can I just say, everyone's like, if I were a 14-year-old boy, I'd love to have a girl in the locker room. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't, dude. And I know that you joke about it and you make jokes. No, absolutely not. You would not. I would be mortified if I had to change for physical education, knowing that a biological girl was standing next to me, even if that biological girl wore jeans and a dirty T-shirt and had a short haircut and went by the name of, androgynous Chris. It would be a nightmare for me. And you can't imagine the impact it has on boys going through girls are going through such a confusing time, and girls, their bodies are changing and they have self-loathing and they're self-conscious about it. Ditto boys. You don't hear about us very often, and we don't have a lot of advocates for ourselves when we're going through that. But boys are going through a real tough time there, too. So this story really hits home for me because, yes, I'm a father of a couple of daughters that I want to instinctively protect. I also have 2 sons. Same thing. I can't imagine them having to deal with this.
Yeah, Larry, I echo that. I am an estrogen machine.
You are, but you're surrounded by a lot of tea in your house.
Yes, but I am raising 3 teenage boys, and actually, 2 of our kids go to all boys schools, and the other one goes to another private school. That's all of my boys go to pretty conservative schools. We wanted to protect them from this kind of stuff, and what's so sad is it's funny. I often say, get your kids out of the public schools. Get your kids out of the public schools, but what I should say is, get them out of these insane schools, because there are just as many private schools that are as crazy as the public schools. So you have to be very discerning when you choose where to educate your children. And Heather Hunter, our executive producer, she homeschools. So it might be that is the best choice for you. But the bottom line is there's some crazy stuff going on in America's schools, and it's horrible for boys. Boys are forgotten in this country. And, when they're not forgotten, you know how they're talked about, Larry? They're toxic masculinity.
That's right.
Their natural feelings, the natural way in which they behave is bad. They went so far a couple years ago as to say it's a psychological disorder. Masculinity is a psychological disorder. Yeah. So, they are forgotten. No one advocates for them. And with this transgender stuff, even we do. We talk a lot about how this impacts girls. I'm so glad that you're talking about this also impacts boys.
Yeah. Big time. And by the way, this negative effect on boys and having to put boys through a very unnatural and it's a puberty process and a development process that is being halted or stunted in some way in such an unnatural way that they are having to deal with things and issues that they are not prepared for. No. And as you just told, if they react as these young boys in Loudoun County reacted in a natural, normal way, they are the problem. They got punished. They got disciplined under sexual harassment charges. It is so damaging, and the end result is not only will these boys be affected by it, but guess who else gets affected? Girls in the long run, because you women want our boys to be normal. You want our boys to go through a normal masculinity process that takes time. That's why men need to be engaged with their sons at this age as well, because they are the most important people in their sons' lives as they're going through this process. So it just goes on and on and on, and I'm so glad.
And really quickly there, we're also starting to see, look, Boy Scouts, not just boys anymore, okay? Mm-hmm. You've got sports that generally are male sports that are not. Wrestling. I have a child who's a wrestler, and our school and the school he goes to, they will not wrestle girls. They will not. But it's become common now to go to wrestling matches, and there are girls, and they expect these boys who are going through puberty to wrap their arms and legs around a girl and touch body parts that they shouldn't be touching. It's horrible.
Yes.
What is?
Oh no. When you watch, I was a teenage boy. You watch your cohorts, your buds who are in, and you go to a high school wrestling match, and you it's just a thing where you sort of tease the wrestlers about,
of course,
dude, you like to roll around on the mat with a boy like that, right, and grab him like that, and of course you joke because you know that that boy could say, yeah, you want to try it? Because I will.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
wrestlers are tough.
That's how boys
joke.
talk,
right?
Right. So we make fun of boys who are in boys wrestling, pretending like they like touching boys like that. Imagine having to do that to a girl.
Yeah.
I mean, and why is a girl putting them? Well,
I know.
It's complicated, but it is so complicated that you want this handled properly with love and affection and with values, and you don't want it handled by some out-of-their-mind activist in a public school who has an agenda, and they're using your children as an agenda. So, and again, by the way, if you missed this story, we talked about it a couple of times yesterday, including with your colleague from Independent Women's Forum, Stephanie
Lundquist Aurora.
Lundquist Aurora, thank you. I knew there was a hyphen involved. She was speaking on it as well. And now we have movement in this story. Nick Minock at Channel 7. Our conversation yesterday about this happening at Stonebridge High School in Loudoun County Public Schools, and now yesterday around 3 in the afternoon, Attorney General Miyares and Governor Youngkin both announced that they are starting an investigation, a civil rights investigation into what happened at this high school. We'll have Attorney General Miyares coming up at 8:35 to talk about it. Also, in a moment, we've got some other news here that affects men, affects women, affects our country. That has to do with a Supreme Court decision on the Commander-in-Chief's ability to determine what works properly in terms of cohesiveness for our military. He made a decision about transgender policies on day one of his presidency, and now we have a Supreme Court ruling on it. We'll give you those details in a moment. It's 5:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
All right, so as you know, one of the executive orders signed early on in the Trump presidency had to do with transgender policy in the military. many people in the military, even those who at first were tolerant and understanding of certain aspects of this policy, even they had admitted that this had gotten a bit out of control. And certainly during the Biden administration, you saw the military putting out social media posts, videos, sort of celebrating and encouraging more recruitment within the trans community. It's like, look at me. I'm a drag queen at night, but during the day, I serve on an aircraft carrier, and it's like you wonder why we're having some recruitment problems. They thought that this was in some way signaling that the military is super inclusive, and so we'll open it up to a whole new band of recruits. But meanwhile, it repelled the people who you really want fighting your wars in the long run. The people who don't want to sign up the military because they can serve alongside a transgender drag queen on an aircraft carrier. I don't know why that needs to be explained to people, but apparently it does. There was a federal judge, of course, who did a nationwide injunction blocking that policy. Supreme Court yesterday lifted that injunction and allowed the ban to move forward. And so that's the big news from yesterday.
And honestly, while you sneeze, I don't understand why SCOTUS is allowing these judges to do this. It seems like, these low-level judges continue to do these nationwide injunctions and these stopping executive actions, which are totally constitutional. And again, everything has to make its way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has to rule on these things. And it's like Roberts doesn't seem to be engaging with these judges and instituting any kind of judicial restraint. It's like every judge, every low-level judge has decided to take on this executive and stop anything that Trump is doing. And the Trump administration, frankly, has been incredibly patient. They go through all the traps. It gets up to the Supreme Court rules. But again, this is embarrassing for the Supreme Court. It's embarrassing for our judicial system. It's clearly broken, and I'm just tired of this. I'm tired of this. Trump issues a totally legitimate order, and then some judge stops it, and then it makes its way through the courts. I'm bored of this. This is obviously common sense.
It is common sense, and the problem with this policy, in my opinion, if I can, and the problem with it is that is how it was implemented in the first place to allow for transgender individuals in the military. At the very beginning, and I believe it was under Obama that this was allowed, that the policy should have been, and people make jokes about Corporal Klinger all the time in MASH. Yeah. That Babylon B, I think, had a headline yesterday saying Corporal Klinger finally gets his discharge, his transgender ban. If somebody was in the military, they had signed up and were recruited as a woman, and then halfway through their service decided that they were having issues with their gender dysphoria, or whatever the appropriate term is these days. They should have been counseled and worked through and put in a position where they would be honorably discharged from the military. Listen, you got a lot going on right now. The last thing you need is to deal with that while you're also dealing with having to fight our wars. All right, so let's work out a way for you to become a civilian. When that didn't happen, and instead the politicians said, well, of course, all are welcome, and we'll help you with that, and we'll pay for your transition, and we'll do all of these things.
Yes, that's it, Larry. We will pay for your surgeries.
They created this scenario, and I say this because it's interesting, because so many of the people who get the headlines are men who dress up like women. Let me ask you something. We have different standards in the military for men and women, right? So if you're a man and you identify as a woman, what standard are you supposed to meet?
I'm so confused. I need a whiteboard whenever these things.
That's the challenge. And so, of course, they determined, there's trans women are women, so now the standard is the women's standard. So now these men are meeting the lower standards that are the women's standards. But here's what's interesting. In my life, and I have dealt with this personally, I've met a couple of young ladies who joined the military and then decided, I know two in particular, not only decided that they were going to transition and become men, but they were Marines. Now, yes. And they went through they went down to Quantico after they graduated the Naval Academy, and they identified as men. And I also knew men who were in their command, who were biological men who had to struggle with it. This has become such a mess. And listen, it's interesting. It's easy to look at these bans as this great big blanket policy, but when you actually meet the individual who is affected by it, your heart has to go after them. I do feel bad for these women who were told something and promised something, and now they're going through this. That doesn't change the fact that for military cohesiveness, you need to have this policy. They were wronged by allowing this policy to go so far in the first place.
They have literally created an incentive to join. If you decide that you are transgender and you can't afford a surgery, they have literally created an incentive for these people to join the military. And there are TikTok videos. Doubt. Yes. There are TikTok videos galore proving it.
Yep. No, I have no doubt that people have exploited this and they've dealt with it. So, now you're going to hear a lot of sob stories in the media. You're going to hear about a lot of people who serve well and they have great records and guess what? They are great people, but they shouldn't be in the military because it does affect cohesiveness. It does affect our chain of command. It does affect our ability to fight our wars, and that needs to be paramount. It needs to be primary. But ultimately, you go back to the activists during the Obama administration who created this mess in the first place. It is their fault for creating this situation. Yes. And ultimately, whatever young person is going through these processes, go through your stuff. Keep it out of the military. That needs to be the ultimate answer here. And by the way, we've also got Jeremy Hunt with Veterans on Duty. He's going to be joining us to reflect on this policy and how it affects the military. Coming up at 7:05. Right now it's 5:24.
Coming up, we have a weird story, another weird trans story. This was about a Colorado Democrat who believes in a trans Jesus. Oh, boy. Keep it here. We'll cover it. It's 5:30.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37. O'Connor and Company coming up at 6:35. Cal Thomas will be here at 7:05. Jeremy Hunt, Veterans on Duty. At 8:05, Gordon Chang. And then at 8:35, the Attorney General of Virginia, J.C. Miares. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
It's funny. I'd love to not continue with, and now this transgender story and now that transgender story, but they just keep dragging us back in. The Cardinals, as we speak, the mass for the Cardinals entering the Conclave to choose the next pope has just ended, and the Cardinals have processed into the Sistine Chapel, and we're now in a waiting pattern, right? We could have
looking for the smoke.
Could have a pope at any moment, and if it's like the movie Conclave, we got to apparently do a gender check on the pope, because I don't know. I finally saw the movie. Spoiler: they pick a trans, but not unknowingly, right? Ray Fine's the only one who finds out the truth, and at the end he was like, "Yeah, I'm done with this.
I don't care.
Whatever." I don't care.
And neither did we. By the end of the movie, you're like, whatever. Why did I just give my time
I sort of wanted the Pope who wanted to kill the jihadis, but, I'm ready for the next Crusades. Let's go. Tedesco was the hero of that movie.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry for spoiling it for y'all, but come on, at this point you should see it. Anyway, the point is, I don't think the Cardinals are going to be choosing a transgender Pope. I don't think.
No, for goodness.
But if you are a Democrat in Colorado, you may take things one step further. Forget about the Pope. How about the Messiah? Take a listen to this. This is part of the Colorado Senate as they're having a debate over one of the most radical, you think California is bad, one of the most radical transgender laws that's being implemented in the state of Colorado. Take a listen to this Democrat's argument on behalf of the law. Cut one.
This email, I'm going to end it here, says, basically, I'm accountable to Almighty God because I'm standing up for equality. That my decisions one day, I will stand before him and be accountable. Well, this is what I believe. You ever seen that movie, Talladega Nights?
Oh, my God.
And you see that section where they're talking around the dinner table and they're talking about what their favorite version of Jesus is. All right, baby Jesus. I love baby Jesus. And the guy goes, well, I love Leonard Skinner Jesus, when angels are behind him and the choir is singing and he's playing Freebird. Well, on my day of judgment, I might be standing in front of trans Jesus. I don't know.
Oh, dear.
That's a compelling argument. It really is.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a compelling argument to find out whatever religious faith this person belongs to and run as fast as you can away from it. Here, by the way, for the uninitiated, here's the scene from Talladega Nights.
I like to picture Jesus in a tuxedo T-shirt because it says, like, I want to be formal, but I'm here to party, too. 'Cause I like to party, so I like my Jesus to party.
I like to picture Jesus as a ninja fighting off evil samurai.
I like to think of Jesus, like, with giant eagle's wings and singing lead vocals for Leonard Skinner with, like, an angel band. And I'm in the front row, and I'm hammered drunk.
Hey, Cal, why don't you just shut up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Dear 8-pound, 6-ounce, newborn infant Jesus. Don't even know a word yet. Just a little infant, so cuddly, but still omnipotent.
See, this
if you want a little peek into how I parent, sort of that woman. Hey, how about you shut up?
Yeah, it's all of us, I think, watching that scene. And then here comes this Colorado senator not quite getting the joke.
Exactly.
I shall now read from St. Will Ferrell's letter to the Talladegans. Seriously? So there you go. He's looking forward to seeing the trans Jesus.
Reference Talladega Nights when you're not supposed to be like that.
Right. Yeah, the whole point is we're making fun of these people for being idiots.
Yes. What an idiot.
Oh, what a great point he made. He also compared concerned parents to the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, God.
Now, this bill mandates courts to consider dead naming and misgendering as forms of coercive control in custody disputes. Dead naming. In other words, if a parent wants to continue to refer to their child by their name, their parent's given name, that can be taken into effect in custody battles. By the way, for everybody who cares about constitutional crisis and the independence of the judiciary, here are Democrats writing into law demanding what judges are allowed to take into account and what not to take into account. That's, sort of shines a light on the fact that judges follow statutes, which means these federal judges who are stopping the Trump administration, they're violating the statutes that have been written that allow the executive branch. But I digress. This is what Democrats do. And, of course, Julie, I'm sure you're going to make the point that this tells you exactly what Democrats in Virginia would do if they succeed in this next election.
And I'm telling you, it is happening. The criminalization of parents for declining to trans their child, medically alter, mutilate their children. That's coming. Elizabeth Guzman, who was a member of the House of Delegates, introduced this bill. It's coming back. Read Sage's story, Sage's bill, which would have protected kids from trafficking. The Virginia Democrats killed it. Spanberger wins, and they keep the House of Delegates. It's all coming back. It's all coming back. Parents beware.
Yeah. By the way, I sort of like the baby Jesus, too. That's my favorite Jesus.
Okay, good.
I mean, if we're picking our favorite Jesus.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good Jesus.
I kind of like that ninja. It's kind of cool.
You like the one who's going to... That's fair. It's 5:43.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Interesting day yesterday in the White House as the Prime Minister of Canada was coming for a visit. They did the whole sit-down in the Oval with the media shouting questions, throwing questions. And Trump really likes that setting. He doesn't like to go in the Rose Garden and do the 2 questions for you and 2 questions for me. And it's like, we'll just talk. Let's just talk. And it was some fun. My favorite part was when somebody asked about the steel tariffs or the tariffs on automobiles coming in from Canada, and the Prime Minister said right next to him, and Trump just says, well, "We don't want to buy Canadian cars. We don't want to buy their car. We don't want to buy our cars. We don't want your car." And the Prime Minister's like, "I get that.
Okay.
I mean, what's he supposed to say?" All right. So anyway, it was announced that the Houthis are going to stop, bombarding our ships. I never hear. Could have happened, but I have no recollection of President Biden even acknowledging the fact that our military has been under fire on a almost nightly basis.
And remember, Kamala actually, I believe, during one of the debates, said, we don't have any troops anywhere in harm's way around the world, and they flashed to those guys sitting in Syria, going, "What am I doing here?"
Right, exactly.
Right?
I think I said this on the air, but we have a friend, my daughter's old roommate. Ended up, going SWO, being a surface warfare officer, going to San Diego. It was really kind of fun because she was like, "Hey, I get to go to San Diego. I'm going to, jog on the beach and get some sun." And it's like, it's a good.
Meet Tom Cruise.
This at my daughter's wedding. Yes, no, I said, this is a good reminder that all of our sons and daughters who are in the military right now at any given moment are in harm's way, because this young lady, who she's sweet and she's a fine officer, but nobody sort of pegged her as like, she's the one who's going to get thrust into the fight immediately, where all these other people who went Marines, people who went like my daughter went submarines, people who even got put into the channel to be SEALs, they're still doing their schools, they're still doing their qualifications, they're still going through the process. This young officer got right onto a ship right after October 7th. It got sent right to the Middle East, and she, as a weapons officer, has been shooting down missiles and drones for the last year plus.
Wow.
I mean, she has seen more combat than any of her classmates at the Naval Academy. It's kind of ironic and amazing.
Someone should tell Kamala.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so this has been going on over and over and over again. We had basically no retaliation at all, other than maybe once in a while we would shoot a little rocket over. Trump, within his first 30 days, I believe did an assault. Well, of course, we know this because that was the conversation that ended up on the Signal chat that got into the hands of Jeffrey Goldberg. All right, so yesterday the president had an announcement about this. And it was not only did he announce that the Houthis are going to stop doing this, but listen to the exchange with the reporter when the reporter said, talk about, what are the details of this deal? Like as if it was a treaty or something. Right, listen to Trump, cut 3.
We had some very good news last night. The Houthis have announced that they are not, or they've announced to us at least, that they don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight. And we will honor that. And we will stop the bombings, and they have capitulated. But more importantly, we will take their word. They say they will not be blowing up ships anymore, and that's what the purpose of what we were doing. So that's just news. We just found out about that. So I think that's very, very positive. They were knocking out a lot of ships going. As you know, sailing beautifully down the various seas. It wasn't just the canal, it was a lot of other places. And I will accept their word, and we are going to stop the bombing of the Houthis, effective immediately. And Marco, you'll let everybody know that?
Yeah, I thought I had another clip in here where... did we not have the other clip where he's, asked about the deal, and he goes, "It's not a deal. They just said, oh, is it? All right, let's hear that."
Can you tell us a bit more about the deal that you've reached with the Houthis? That you
no, it's not a deal. They've said, please don't bomb us anymore, and we're not going to attack your ships.
And where did you hear about that?
It doesn't matter where I hear it. A very good source, I could tell you. Very, very good source. Would you say, Marco? I would say pretty good, right, JD? A very good source.
It's not a deal. They just said they're not going to bomb our ships anymore. Who'd you hear that from? Real good source. Trust
good
me.
For him. I love
These guys do look like they're having fun here. So at least there's will be no more aggression on U.S. Assets over there. Of course, the Houthis had to flex and say, but the Zionists better continue to stay in their shelters because we will be bombing the Zionists. I assure you the part of this deal is to unleash Bibi and let him do whatever he needs to do to protect his people. So things are sorting themselves out in the Middle East. It's
Another great day. Another great day.
Coming up, D.C. is finally putting the bad guys away, and it's because of the new Attorney General, Ed Martin. Now he faces confirmation, and it seems like a prominent Republican is opposing Mr. Martin. We'll tell you all about it next.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news.